Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Today I invite you to join me on a tale that leads us back to a foggy domain of Paradan. As I have mentioned earlier, Paradan is stacked atop another land. Much like two neighboring lands of the core or the twin lands of the frozen reaches, both halves of Eurasia have a separate origin and a different ruler. The domain of Timor is a stretch of underground tunnels and sewers, small remnants of once great civilization. There's a perpetual haze in the air, decomposing waste, and plants are to blame in the sewers, but it is aggravated by the humidity. There is a surprising amount of range and breadth of plant life growing within the tunnels of Timor. Inside the sewers, many forms of mold, slimes, fungi, and mushrooms are found. The presence of so much moisture encourages growth, although few of the plants are actually healthy. The caverns have a much greater concentration of lichens, many of which are phosphorescent in nature, when exposed to a light source, glowing ghostly in the dark for hours afterwards. At least two notable specimens of plant life grow uniquely in Timor. The first is a type of mushroom called dead truffles. These fungi grow in small clumps of whitish yellow patches. The truffles have no flavor themselves, but they are not poisonous either. However, they have an interesting effect on living creatures that consume them. Such creatures find that their emotions are deadened, even to themselves. Reactions, even to extreme circumstances, become almost impossible. Another notable plant specimen from Timor is grease mold. In some of the sewer sections of Timor, strange and ancient machinery is present. This machinery is non-functional, but it sticks out from the walls in large ungainly clumps, pipes and tubes, leading from it right into the dead walls. Sometimes a jolt to the mechanism causes the machinery to jolt to life unexpectedly, creating a loud bang and a racket for a few moments before the mechanism lapses into dormancy again. Strangely, much of this machinery has been infested with a greasy brownish-black mold. The stuff lets off a horrible odor when disturbed, but is otherwise harmless. However, if it is collected and boiled down to a liquid state, then applied to a mechanical object, it aids the functioning of the machinery. Within the dark labyrinth of Timor, few creatures roam, other than the ever-present Marakith. Otherwise, the lightless depths are home to various oozes, vermin, and the restless undead. Of the latter, most incorporeal, the spirits of those slain in the lightless depths or native to Timor prior to the destruction. As such, the knowledge of the land's history is almost unparalleled. Animators, the spirits of living residents from ancient Timor, are also known to inhabit the derelict machinery, either starting them up at inopportune times or lashing out at travelers. Timor itself can be divided into a number of layers. These are mostly artificial, the myriad of tunnels and levels blurred together, passageways slope up and down with maddening irregularity. In interviewing my guide and after personal exploration, I feel comfortable dividing Timor into three rough layers. The first layer of Timor is the brick passages immediately beneath Paradan. The workers I have interviewed assure me that the tunnels and passages have changed and shifted, and that the blueprints no longer resemble what is down there. It is interesting then that all the drains, pipes and manholes still lead into the tunnels. The rooms and tunnels lack a consistent style. In fact, not even the refuse is entirely Eurasian. The river bisects the sewers, dividing them into an eastern and western half. There is no way to move between the two except by moving down and through the lower levels or returning up to the surface. Of all the levels of Timor, the sewers are the safest, and yet they have the highest number of living things. Vermin are common, and while many are poisonous and deadly things, I would much rather face them than the aberrations that lurk below. Tucked away in a nook between the sewers and the tunnels is the Enclave, a small village of Calabans that lead in minimal existence in Timor. The sturdy people call themselves the Remnants, as they are all the remains of Timor's people. The settlement is hidden in the sunken ruins of Timor's temple district and is centered on the ruins of the great cathedral here. The tower itself remains and lies sloping upward, cutting a path into sewers above. The tower serves as a shaft between the levels and is the only entrance to the Enclave. The rest of the settlement branches away from the cathedral. Houses are built out over dead-end tunnels or partially dug into the tunnel walls where the earth was displaced. The Enclave is at the end of defensible choke point. So far, Calabans have survived by avoiding detection, and it is possible that Hive Queen is unaware such a large and permanent community exists in her realm, as the Enclave location is closely guarded secret known only to the Remnants. The second series of layers can collectively be called the tunnels. These imposing passageways are all the remains of the sewers and catacombs of Timor. Timor was designed to be a city of beauty. Even the sewers had to be magnificent. After years of abuse and corruption, they are still a wonder to behold. The large intersections feature large fresco mosaics, and oftentimes the walls are painted with elaborate designs. Many of the tunnels also seem to be built atop other ruins, catacombs and structures far older than the city of Timor. Holes occasionally crack open into forgotten tombs or long-buried cairns. However, most of these are also within the borders of the Hive. The second subsection of the tunnels includes the ruins of the city of Timor, now abandoned and forgotten. The ruins are a channel of buildings, some upright and somewhat intact, and others destroyed or on their sides. It is in the ruins that the remnants scavenge for goods and items, and where I found the library of Timor. With the grandeur of this construction and testimony to the Timorians' talents, it is easy to forget how deadly it is here. All manner of mutated and hideous abominations lurk here in the dark. Many were corrupted by the nature of Timor, whilst others simply fell prey to the mists or slithered in from outside. Curiously, the darkness has not hindered the last garden of Timor. The plants continue to bloom despite the pitch-black surroundings. I believe some of the Timoran magic is responsible. In fact, the garden does not merely survive, it flourishes. Plants and vines have crept over the nearby ruined buildings, and the surroundings now resemble a temperate jungle. When travelers speak of the shifting tunnels of Timor, they are often referring to this layer. Whilst the tunnels do not actually move, they do seem to shift and hide. Openings seem to vanish no matter how hard one looks for them, only to reappear later, whilst new passages are discovered on commonly traveled routes. Deep below the Nodnal lays the Great Cistern. Tucked away in the lower reaches of the tunnels, near the start of the Hive, it is a single deep shaft plunging down. Here the river had burrowed down into the deep. Resulting tunnels access a number of pools where the runoff pauses for a moment before churning downward. These pools are treacherous, filled with undertows and whirlpools that can drag a man down into the unknown. However, the pools themselves act as collectors for heavier objects. Much like a pan can ferret out weightier metals, the pools deposit discarded objects. The remnants often rummage carefully through these pools, seeking relics from Timor of old or even valuables lost in the river above. The deeper layer of Timor is the Hive. Here the Marrakech rule and make their home. Here man is but prey, an intruder in an alien world. The Hive is composed of a series of natural caverns, ancient tunnels and passages dug into the earth. Most seem to have been burrowed within any matter of tool, clawed out of the rock and soil. The Marrakech often work their bodies into the grooves and remain undetectable, mistaken for another part of the roof or wall. Travelers have sometimes been surprised when whole tunnels seem to come alive without warning. Whilst the passages in the tunnels seem to fade from view, those of the Hive shift and move of their own accord. The entire level arrives unseen, and routes never lead to the same place twice. Some of the remnants believe that beasts reshape the tunnels personally, moving dirt and brick by hand and claw. Others believe it reshapes to the will of its queen, twisting to fit her wishes. What I find most disturbing in the Hive is not the alien design, but the small fragments of humanity that have worked their way down. Ancient ruins such as crypts or forgotten tombs can be found in the darkest corners of the Hive. The odd statue or monument stands openly in an intersection, ruined and defaced. There are also the Catacombs, a series of brick tunnels that have opened up in the ceilings of the Hive. Anyone of renown was entombed here, along with their most valued possessions. Tucked away in a corner of the Hive are the royal tombs. Part of the catacombs that fill the various tunnels, this is a great structure originally located underneath the royal palace. As the earth shook, both slid into the crevasse and sank deep into the Hive. Here is located the final resting place of Queen Arenia, the former monarch of Timor. She was the last human ruler of this land and was buried with honors in the final years of the land. It appears that the queen does not rest quietly. She wished for immortality through her works, and now they all lay ruined and she is forgotten. Her spirit longs for both glory and revenge. This legend has not stopped treasure seekers from attempting the journey to the tomb. All the royal riches of Timor, including the enchanted crown jewels, are enshrined here. There is reputed to be a sword of the royal guards, the very blade used to knight the royal Marrakech hunters. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Timor is the domain of great dangers and even greater treasures. So if you wish to test your luck and skill, be careful while crossing the mists.